Hello, this video will show you how to attach a regulator to a D-cylinder. A D-cylinder is the type of tank that you normally would be discharged with from the clinic or the hospital. This tank here comes in a black shoulder bag that zips up. Most adults are generally put on 2 liters of oxygen per minute. You get about 2.5 hours on a tank that's this size. But let's go over, how to attach the regulator and how to remove it as well. So in the event that you need additional fills, you'll know actually how to switch over the regulator from one tank to the next. But to begin with, so all new tanks, they have a piece of white plastic tape around the top part. That plastic tape, that has to come off, basically. The purpose of it, it's a dust guard. It prevents dust and dirt particles from going inside the tank until it's ready for use. You usually use a fingernail underneath it, just kind of break the seal. Or you can sometimes just slip it right over the head of the tank too. That generally will work most of the time. But once that tape's off, I'm gonna show you here, this large hole on the tank, that's actually where the air comes out of on the tank. There's 2 smaller holes right below the large hole. And those are just placement holes on the regulator. Let me show you this. There's 2 pins on every style of regulator. This helps secure the regulator to the tank. So on the opposite side of those 3 holes, there's a little indentation right here. And that indentation, if we go back to looking at the regulator, there's this little T-bolt, basically. This is what threads or screws down into that little indentation. And this is ultimately what helps secure the regulator to the tank, okay? There's only one way for the regulator to go onto the tank. On this type of regulator that I have before me, there's a little barbed piece. This little barbed piece, kind of where my thumb is right over here. This is where the actual oxygen flows out of on the regulator, and that's where your oxygen tubing is gonna attach. It's just gonna slip right on there. Now you don't need to go past, there's a little split right here, the barb piece. You don't need to bring the tube all the way up to the very top. You just need to go past the first little mark right here where my thumb is. And once you've done that, then you'll know that your tubing's on there and it's secure. So we've got those 2 pins, which we're gonna place into the 2 holes. The part where the tube connects will always face towards the ground with this type of regulator. So I'm gonna drop this over the stem of the tank here, up top. I'm gonna drop it over like so. I'm actually gonna lay this down now and show you. As I'm doing this, you can actually visually see that those 2 little pins are going into those 2 holes. Now, once you have the pins in the holes, you'll just wanna hold the regulator in place, and then you'll come over here and you'll turn this piece clockwise. I'm sorry, I'm filming this and using both my hands here, so bear with me. All right, so we'll tighten this all the way, or as much as we can. You just want to do it by hand tightening it. You'll know too, when you go to open the tank up, if this is not tight enough over here, you'll hear the oxygen leaking out. So now looking at the gauge on the regulator, the black needle's all the way down here at 0 right now. A full tank, when we were to turn this on, the black needle will shoot up to 2,000 PSI. This gauge does show up to 3,000 PSI, but the maximum pressure that a cylinder can hold is 2,000 PSI, so just keep that in mind. And again, most adults are generally put on 2 liters of oxygen per minute, and at 2 liters you get 2.5 hours on this. If you're on 3 liters of oxygen, you'll get about 1.5 hours. If you're on 4, you're gonna get about 45 minutes. So not a ton of time. This is just really for portability to get you from one location to the next. And then we would generally come out to set you up with a oxygen concentrator. So next step, once you have the regulator on the tank, you're gonna wanna there will always be an attached little plastic wrench on this chain, and it's gonna have 2 holes. You can use either one of these 2 holes where my thumb is, and you're gonna place those on top here at the very tip top of the tank on the stem here. This is where you'll place that. And then to actually open up a tank, you want to turn this counterclockwise direction. All right, so away from you to actually open the tank. And as I did that, you can see now on the gauge that that black needle shot up to the 2000 mark at the full zone there. Now you're gonna wanna spin this around a couple of times just to ensure that it is fully open. You really don't need to do more than 3 rotations. Generally that's sufficient. You could end up turning this top piece like 20 times, but it's unnecessary. So just keep that in mind. Now that it's open, to actually get the oxygen flowing, you would then come over to your knob on the side. It's set to 0 right now. Some of the regulators will say off position. So 0 off, and then you'll just turn it up until you get to the setting that you need to be on. Half, 3/4, 1. But again, most adults are generally put on 2. Once you have it on 2, you can kind of hear it flowing. Even you can hear it more so at like 3. If you were to put your thumb on the barb piece, you can actually feel it coming out right there. So when you're not using a tank, you can turn it to the 0 or off position. That'll stop the flow of the air coming out of the barbed piece right here. However, the oxygen in the cylinder could still leak out for where the regulator meets the stem of the tank up here. So right down where my finger's at, this is kind of where it could leak out. So it never hurts for when this is not being in use, is to shut off the tank itself. And another thing too, the reason why you want to shut it off if you're not using it as well, is that keeping stored pressure inside the regulator, it wears down the components and the parts that are inside of it. So it's just not good. It's just wear and tear on it. So if you would just shut it off, and to do that, you'll put this wrench back on top and you turn it clockwise, and you'll continue to do that until you can't turn it any further. Do it a couple times over like we did when we opened it. All right, so now I can't turn it any further. So now I know the tank is officially off. There's still pressure on the gauge, even though it's off. Now that's air that's just trapped inside the regulator now at this point. So if I were to take the regulator off, I'd want to bleed out the pressure or the air that's trapped inside there. To do that, you'll just go over here to your knob again. You'll turn it up. You can turn it all the way up to the highest it'll go. This goes up to 4 liters. And you're just going to flush out any of the trapped air inside here, and you'll watch your black needle go all the way back down to 0. And once that's down to 0, then it's safe for you to come over here and you'll turn this counterclockwise, and then that unscrews, and then you can remove the regulator, take it off of this tank, and then you can apply it to a new tank. One last thing that I want to show you with this regulator is that there is it's an O-ring washer, a little black gasket basically. And this is what goes on the regulator, and I'll show you this in a moment, but sometimes it'll actually stick to the outside of the tank when you take the regulator off of a tank. So if you ever do notice that it's stuck on there, you're going to want to take that, get your fingernail underneath it, remove it. All right. It's the same on both sides with this, the little rubber part is. So it doesn't matter which side you put this back on the regulator, but the regulator right here, down in this center part, there's a little brass post right here where my thumb is at. And that's where that little O-ring washer will sit on to that piece there. But again, it doesn't matter which way you place it on there. But that is a crucial component. That's actually what keeps the seal for the regulator to the tank. So just make sure that that's always in that position right there. Sometimes the O-ring washer will start to wear down over time. And if that's the case, you might notice some leaking as well for when the regulator is on the tank. If that is the case, just call us. Our phone number is on the tank, by the way. You can call either the Summit County number or the Vail number, either or, it doesn't matter which. And we would be able to come out to get you a additional O-ring gasket washer there. But that's it. That's how simple it is to put a regulator onto a tank and how to remove it. With these cylinders, you want to make sure that they're always lying down on their side for wherever you store them. You never want to have them freestanding upright. So if they were to get knocked over, you know, if you were to break off this top stem for whatever reason, this is under a lot of pressure. This could act as a projectile and go shooting across the room. Last thing to bear in mind is to make sure that there's no smoking, no open flames directly around this. That's it. Thanks for watching.